Welcome to Faith Talk with Val
and Sony.
We are a Bible-based podcast where we talk about real life, real struggles, and how faith makes all the difference. So, when was the last time you felt like you were doing everything, but still felt like it was not enough?
It's so interesting that that's the topic of this week, because this weekend, the sermon at church was about the book of Revelations, and we were going into the book of Revelations chapters 2 and 3 specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was at church, one of the verses stood out to me because it finally made sense the way I've been feeling lately. I had mentioned to you last week, and I think even the week prior to that, I feel like I've been doing so much and we've been doing so much where I'm just striving to do more and be more, and here I am picking up old habits again, right? But just because I feel like, okay, I have the capacity, but instead of gradually increasing the capacity or inviting God into the additional things that I'm taking on, I feel like I've taken the reins and I'm exhausted. And it feels depleting again. And it's not a good place to be mentally, because it's actually very discouraging. And when we were going through the book of Revelations, specifically chapter 3, verses 1 and 2, I literally sat there thinking to myself, like, that's how I feel. And it was almost like God telling me specifically, then wake up and do something about it, because this is not good. This is not where He's calling me to be. And so let me just read it for you.
And what church is this? Because I know there's 7 churches.
Yes, so there's 7 churches. And this is the angel speaking to the church of Sardis.
Okay, cool.
And so it says, "These are the words of Him who holds the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars. I know your deeds. You have a reputation of being alive, but you are dead. Wake up, strengthen what remains and is about to die, for I have found your deeds unfinished in the sight of my God."
That's kind of insulting.
It is, however, it's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
What good is doing all of these things in the name of God if you're losing your personal relationship with God? And that's where I feel like I'm at. I feel like I'm doing all of these things, and, it's encouraging to hear from others how, things that I've shared or things that, we've helped with, has made a difference, but at what cost? And that's the part that's been so discouraging. I feel like I had such a deep and personal relationship with God for a long time, and now all these good deeds, quote unquote, have cut into that personal time, and I feel disconnected. I feel like I'm not hearing from Him, and it's this icky feeling, and I don't like it. So the other thing that comes to mind is boundaries. Boundaries are for your own good. And while we might want to take on more and more because you feel like you have the capacity, just because you have free time does not mean that you have capacity. And it's okay to say no to some things. It's okay to take a step back and just spend time with God and fill your cup, because think of the quality that you're also putting out when you're running from a cup that's depleting continually instead of being filled. So, biggest takeaway, free time does not mean capacity.
Oh, I love that. No, but I think a common thing is like when you are doing all the things, when you're in ministry or kind of like helping out at your church or just doing a lot of stuff from the outside in, it could look like you have your life together. It could look like everything is going perfect. But the truth is, everything looks perfect, but it's hanging on by a thread.
Yeah.
It's only because it's just, I barely made the cutoff. I barely was able to get all these things done. Or maybe like I pick up my children from school and I do all these different things, but it comes at a cost. Like I never have extra time. I always have just enough time, or I'm running a little late.
And it makes me think about filling your cup. So if you're not filling your cup, but filling your cup in the right way, you are going to feel depleted. You are going to feel exhausted. And just in general, thinking back to like when you feel exhausted and you finally sit down for rest, are you sitting down to watch TV? Are you sitting down to doom scroll on your phone? that's not relaxing. That's not actually filling your cup. That's entertainment. And there's a difference between entertainment and resting. God calls you to rest. And that's actually in the verse,
or in the story of Elijah.
Yes. So the story of Elijah and his burnout. So Elijah was doing deed after deed and good thing after good thing in the name of God. But finally, he was so exhausted, so depleted, because he wasn't spending that personal time, that personal connection with God, that he asked God to take his life.
I think we all think like that's kind of melodramatic, but it's actually very honest, because asking to have your life taken away from you is not something that you say when you're barely holding on or barely getting by. It's when you pass that point. It's when you're just like, I am so chronically depleted. I have nothing else left in me. And if we don't abide and we don't read our Bible and we don't allow God to like refresh our soul, our mind, and our spirit and renew us, we could eventually end up in that point.
Yeah.
And it's very realistic to end up there.
My little note next to the verse that I read, it basically saying we're falling asleep at the wheel, and the enemy attacks when you fall asleep. He's waiting to attack when your guard's down, and we have to be watchful. We have to keep our guard up. We have to wear the armor of God daily to be protected. He's waiting for us to make a mistake. And going back to the story of Elijah, that was literally it. God said, eat and rest, right? Whenever I'm feeling cranky, I'm like, well, God said take a nap and give me a snack, right? But in context, yes, have a healthy meal and rest. The deeper meaning is filling yourself with the daily bread, which is the word of God. And I think that's where you're going to fill your cup. That's where your replenishment and recharge is going to come from. And we might feel spiritually depleted, emotionally depleted. Our energy might be low. But at the end of the day, what we do to recharge is what determines how long we stay in that mindset. I want to read to us also Psalm 13, verse 1. How long, Lord, will you forget me? Forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? So we need to let the presence of God comfort us. We need to trust in God's goodness, even in the midst of sorrow, and make the choice to lean on God and understand that He's always nearby. We're not alone.
And a little bit of context to the verse that Sony just read. What verse was that?
That was Psalm 13, verses 1 through 2.
Perfect. Before, when we were talking about like this episode, and I'm just like, I want to dedicate full time to God, to like read my Bible. What does full time mean? I don't know. I feel like that's going to mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But in my mind, whatever I was willing to give in that moment, I felt like it wasn't enough time. And I remember looking at my Bible and going like, is one verse enough, God? Like, what is enough for me to say that I dedicated time to you today? And sometimes I think we don't spend time with God because we have this idea that we have to hit this amount of time, or whatever we're reading has to be like a planned devotional, or it has to make sense to us, or whatever we're reading, we have to understand it in the second. And if we don't understand it, it was wasted time. I don't know how many times like I've opened up my Bible and I've read things and I'm like, this makes zero sense. And in my mind, I'm like, that was a failed attempt at abiding in Christ because I didn't understand whatever I read. I didn't believe that just the intention and sitting down and setting the time aside to read it, that's what counts.
Yeah.
It's not if I understand it or not. God will give you the understanding as time goes by. Maybe you won't understand it today. Maybe a week later, you're like, hey, that verse that I was reading, it now clicks.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes we're reading our Bibles and we're just like, if we don't get something out of it in that moment, we're like, that was a failure. And then tomorrow, when we're supposed to do it again, we don't even bother. Yesterday was a failure. Today is going to be a failure. Kind of like thinking about like going to the gym where you don't do what you want to do. And you're like, why bother?
Yeah.
Yesterday it didn't work out.
What's that verse? It literally says that, God, why do I don't do the things I want to do?
Paul is, yes.
And he's like, but the things I don't want to do, I do.
Mm-hmm.
When you were saying that. So my routine for a very long time had been wake up at 4 a.m, be in my Bible, be at the gym by 5, clock into work at 6.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow it worked out. And I had all of the energy for the whole day. And my day started amazing. And I was in like this great routine. I felt connected. I could listen and hear God when I was in the Word. It was a great place to be. And then the last race I did, I hurt my knee. And so I had to give myself some rest. And since I'm not going to the gym or on runs, I don't have to wake up so early. I can push back the time a little. And then instead of waking up at 4, I can wake up at 5. And then 5 turns into, well, I really don't have to be up that early. So maybe I'll just wake up at 5:30. Next thing you know, I don't have time to be in my Bible before I clock into work. So then I'm not doing it. And I feel like getting out of that routine had such a domino effect, because now if I'm not doing it in the morning before work, I'm doing it after work. But am I doing it after work? Because now we're meeting for this recording. I'm trying to participate in my church and do volunteer work there. And I haven't even started yet. And it's already feeling like another check to cross off the list. And like, I hate feeling like things that are supposed to bring me joy, things that are supposed to, encourage or uplift others feel like a task. And so on my way over here, that was literally all that I could think about. I was like, God, something needs to change because I'm not enjoying this. And I don't love that this is the feeling that I have when it comes to something that
is so important
to me. There is another thought as we're talking about all of this, when we overexhaust ourselves. So my experience right now is all of the things that I've taken on. But think to yourselves, what in your life are you not saying no to that's causing you to become exhausted? That's causing you to not have the time to spend with God or not have the time to replenish your cup. And it's honestly probably affecting your health, whether it's mental, physical, spiritual. There's so many things that we start missing out on when we're not filling our cup, when we're not taking the time to rest. And the verse that comes to mind when I think about that is actually the chapter. So Exodus chapter 18. And it's basically God telling Moses to delegate. And he says, what you are doing is not good. You and these people will only wear yourselves out. And earlier you had mentioned when you build a house in vain if God is not in the building with you.
We do a lot of different things. And when you think about it, you're just like, what if God told you, like, hey, you're doing a lot of different things, good things for your family, for your friends, for the kingdom, for your church, all good things. But all of those things, you didn't involve me in any of them. We never planned together. We never set time aside. We didn't talk about it. You didn't allow room for me to put my input on things. What if I wanted to share with you, we're going to put a pause on this, we're going to continue with this. Like, you got zero input from me, a person that knows the future of all the things that you're going to do, but you got zero input because you never spent the time. So everything you did, you worked in vain.
You did it the hard way.
I feel like if God told me that, I would literally be like, then what's the point? What's the point of doing anything?
That's where I'm at right now. It feels like I'm doing all of the things. I have the good intentions. The heart posture's there, but I'm exhausted. Like, I want to continue doing all of the things, but it's discouraging to feel this way where I'm like one ask away from just being like, forget it, we're doing nothing. Like, because, and it's not that people are asking left. No one's asking anything of me right now. This is literally stuff that I've signed up for with good intentions. But this is how you know the enemy's in this, because it's like they're good things. They're things that I know can bring good to myself, to others, to the glory of God. But at the end of the day, it feels burdensome. And I hate saying that, but it feels burdensome to have it feel like a checklist that I can't wait to get through instead of find joy through.
But I love that you're sharing this because it's honest. It's how a lot of us feel. It's the things that we don't say. It's the things that we look at other people and we're just like, how are you managing? Because I'm not. And then it's the things that make us feel like we're doing something wrong because for some reason we can't manage it, but we're seeing other people manage it. But I think when other people share, like the way I'm sharing, the way you're sharing, how it doesn't always look pretty and it's actually very exhausting when you forget to involve God, when you don't prioritize Him in your life. Because I've been through seasons where I'm abiding, I'm reading my Bible, I'm on routine, and life is good. Like it just feels
It feels different. I don't know how else to explain it, but everything just makes sense. Everything just falls into place, and it's not a struggle, and it's not burdensome. And there's time for everything. Like sometimes, like right now, I think about all of the things that I have to get done tomorrow, and I'm like, there's not enough hours in the day for me to do all of that. But then I think back to like a few months ago when I was getting up at 4 a.m. and I was doing those things, and I literally had time to relax. I had time to like go visit with friends and go do other things. Why? Because my cup was full and I was abiding. And I think to myself, when we get, I'm not feeling like any sort of way. Don't worry about me right now. But I feel like this is how sometimes we arrive at feeling depressed, at feeling, darkness, because you have consecutive days that start feeling like this and you don't take the time to reset. And I think it's so important to take the time to reset.
You know what that reminds me of? And we've mentioned this maybe in a previous episode, maybe briefly touched on it, living off leftovers.
Oh my gosh, yes.
When the people of Israel, so in the Bible, the people of Israel, God provided manna for them, fresh, daily. And what the people ended up doing is hoarding, because they didn't trust God to bring food for them another day. They would hoard the manna, and this upset God. So He said, you must trust that I will bring you fresh manna every day.
Well, and He's like, eat all that you want, all that you need for the day. I will provide for each day. Don't hoard.
And what did they do? They hoarded. And what happened? God spoiled all the hoardings, because that was not what was intended. We are meant to rely on God daily. So it has me thinking about how when we hoard the Bible, when we hoard scripture, when we go to church, and I am guilty of this. This is why I'm thinking about this verse or this story. But we go to church, we get fed, and we hoard that food
for the whole week.
Until we're back to Sunday and we get fed again. And then we wonder why we're struggling. Well, because there is no such thing as leftovers. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that was like spoiled manna. What you heard on Sunday was only for Sunday.
That's such a good point. And it even has me thinking, because I've said this multiple times, like I'll listen to different sermons throughout the week, and while it's uplifting, it's still not that personal time. And I think the big difference is personal time is the time you're spending praying, the time you're spending listening, the time you're spending, pouring your heart out to God and having an actual conversation with God. And it can be, at 4 in the morning, first thing in the morning. It can be throughout your day. It could be on your drive. Like where you do it, how you do it doesn't necessarily matter. But it is time where you're seeking personal, intimate connection with God and not just listening to sermons and podcasts and doing things in the name of God. Because at the end of the day, that's not filling your cup. Those are just actions in the name of God. And again, it takes me back to that verse in Revelations where it's basically empty deeds in the name of God. And what is that other verse? Did we read this already? Where he's like, I never knew you?
No, we haven't read that. It was Matthew 7, verse 21.
So this verse, Matthew 7, verse 21, this is the second time it happens today, because I told Valerie, I said, Val, like, you're going to have to take the lead as we're doing this, because I am checked out mentally. Like, I'm here, I'm willing, but I have no focus right now. And so we're talking about this verse, Matthew 7:21. I had the verse, like that's in my notes. And then Valerie's like, well, I'm trying to remember which one it is, but I can't. And she just randomly opens her Bible and lands on Matthew chapter 7, verse 21. And I'm just like staring down at my notes, just like it's in here somewhere, but I'm not actually looking. I'm just like staring down, like checked out. And she's like, oh, it's okay. I found it. Like unintentionally found it. But the funny thing, God knows how checked out I am. He's like, no, this verse means something. You will read it. And just now, I'm still looking at my notes like, wait, which verse was it? And Val, off the top of her mind, points to Matthew. God's here today.
I was like, and I don't even know where that came from. I don't know how I remembered that.
Okay, so here's the verse. Matthew chapter 7, verse 21. True and false disciples. So not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Verse 22. Many will say to me on the day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. That verse is so convicting because it's the loudest wake-up call. You can do deeds for others. You can do deeds in the name of God. You can do all of these things. But at the end of the day, if you don't have that personal relationship with God, you're doing all of that in vain.
That's really scary. But at the same time, I feel like it's something that we need to hear while we're still here on earth, while we still have time. The worst time that you can hear that is once you're dead up in heaven and you actually hear Jesus say, get away from me, I never knew you. So I think about listening to sermons, listening to podcasts, watching TikToks, Instagram, YouTube videos. These are all really good things, but they're not a personal relationship with God. That's like a secondhand relationship. The way I like to think about it is like, let's say you are really fond of someone or you like someone, and you have the power to pick up the phone and have a conversation with this person and get to know them.
Yeah.
But you decide to never do that. Instead, you just attend all this person's concerts. Let's say they were like a singer or something. You attend all the concerts, you listen to all the interviews, you hang out with people that know them and they tell you so much about them, but you low-key have their phone number and you could get to know them personally whenever you want. Nothing's stopping you. It's even guaranteed that they're going to answer the phone and they're going to take the time to have a conversation with you. But for some reason, you just don't pick up that phone and you become satisfied with attending the concert.
You know them by proxy.
By proxy, exactly. And how bad would it look like if you decide to one day go up to them and they're like, I actually don't know you.
As you're saying that, I thought of the second part of the Revelations that I was reading earlier. So this is Revelations chapter 3, verse 3. Remember, therefore, what you have received and heard. Hold it fast and repent. But if you do not wake up, I will come like a thief, and you will not know at what time I will come to you. It's a warning.
It is a warning.
You have time, but do you? Because the thief comes in the middle of the night without warning.
Yeah.
So this is your time. Today is the day to make the changes. Today is the day to dedicate. Start with 5 minutes. Give 5 minutes of your time to God, 5 quality minutes of your time. And I'm sitting here literally saying that's been so hard for me lately. Like, I pray throughout the day, but I don't feel that it's uninterrupted, and therefore it's not quality. I feel like my thoughts overtake during the prayer, and then I end up not finishing my prayer, or, the phone rings, or, whatever the case. But like, I know right now there's like this spiritual attack where I'm not abiding, and I can feel it. I can feel how far away from God I am, where it almost feels like I shouldn't be doing all of these other things because that's the priority. That's what fills my cup. And I've learned the hard way, I cannot live without God. Like, it actually, like, it breaks my heart now, because I'm like, we were so close. Like, I'm losing my friend is what it feels like. But it's had such a positive influence in my life, and now I know the difference. So now I try to catch myself when I start feeling some sort of way, or when thoughts start getting dark or just spiraling. Like, I know I have to take my thoughts captive. I know I had to get back into my routines and wear the armor of God and like do all of the things. Honestly, it might feel like a challenge to do all of the things. It might feel like a challenge to get back into the habit. But at the end of the day, once I'm in habit again, everything feels easier. It's like a load. He takes your yoke. Is that what the verse says?
You take his yoke. His yoke is easy.
His yoke is light. His yoke is easy, right? And that, like, once you know the feeling, you know the feeling. I wanted today's episode to be a warning, a reminder that if you're feeling this way, take a second to reflect, because I guarantee you, your personal time with God is lacking right now. And I guarantee you that the moment you start prioritizing, you will see the shift. You'll start to feel better mentally, physically, emotionally, because He's filling your cup. You're going to be poured into from the source itself. And nothing compares to that.
And I think one of the common denominators that we have in our stories, where we say, this truly is the thing that affected my relationship or spiritual life with God, is falling out of routine. Routine is so very important to me, and it's so very important to you. I'll give you guys an example. I used to... You know how they say you can spend time with God whenever you want? I always say, like, yes, whenever you want. But if you have something that works for you, keep that. Don't change that for any reason. Like, if it works for you, if you're like, I know I can speak to God whenever, but in the morning is the time that I know I'm going to give Him, and it's going to be fully dedicated, undivided, do that. And don't let anyone sway you from that. I want to say like maybe like 2-3 years ago, I don't remember, but I had this solid routine where I was waking up early, spending time with God every single morning. And I had it all planned out. Like, not that you have to have it, but I need to have it planned out or else it doesn't happen. I would do like listening to worship music for like 10 minutes. And then after that, I would like pray and then jump into my Bible and do stuff every day before I ate, before anything. I would just make myself like a coffee, and then I would just get into it. And that was so, so good. And then I would journal. Whatever like I remembered, whatever stood out to me. That was a really good setup for me. And then at the time, there was this coworker of mine who basically, he's like, I don't believe in that. He is a Christ follower. He claims to be, but he said, I believe that you don't have to have a set routine. You can spend time with God whenever you want. And he's like, for me, I don't have a routine. I just do it whenever I feel like it. I should have never heard him say that, because that entered this little thing in my head telling me it's okay if you miss your Bible study with God this morning. You could do it later in the day. Later never happened. And once I missed one day, it was so easy to miss the second day. and then the third day. Not saying this guy did anything wrong, not saying that you can't listen, you can't have your thing any way, but I'm saying for those of you who know yourselves, who know you thrive on structure, who know it needs to be done a specific way, even if it doesn't make sense to other people, I'm telling you, it needs to be that way for you.
Yeah.
Don't give in to the idea of I can do it whenever, because that is like a crack in the foundation. I wish I would have never had that conversation with him. I regret it because I think about where I would be in my spiritual life today had I kept that structure.
It also makes me think of first fruits, because first fruits, again, we talked about this in last week's episode, I think. First goes to God. Look at it as the first fruits in your morning. Again, some of you, it'll be in the evening. But like when you have already set that time aside, you are more likely to stick to it if it's part of your routine versus randomly saying at some point during all my meetings, during all of the ups and downs of the day, I will make time.
What do they say? There's like a saying, if you fail to plan, you planned to fail.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And that also brings to mind, I was watching this video basically talking about the power of selective attention. In the video, I don't know if you've come across it, there's this lady speaking and she's like, I'm going to show you a picture. She's like, but get ready. I want you to tell me how many yellow bananas are in this next picture. And I'm just like, okay, I got this. I'm like mentally preparing for a challenge. So the picture comes in and I'm like zooming and I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, counting all these yellow bananas. And then afterwards, she's like, okay, how many green apples were there? And I was like, what?
I've seen this.
You've seen it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. And I'm like trying to go back. I was like, I was too focused on the yellow bananas. And then she goes on to talk about this theory. And it got me thinking from a biblical perspective. When we, and going back to first fruits, when we read our Bibles in the morning, we allow God to be the lens of that day that we're about to have. That. And when he's the lens, it could be the exact same day we were going to have regardless, but the way we view it would be completely different because now we're looking out for everything he told us in scripture. So instead of focusing on all the bad stuff or all the missed opportunities or all the potential escalations, fights or whatever, they still happen.
Yeah.
But our mind does not see them. Like the yellow bananas, we only see God's goodness in everything. And I always think about two people can live the exact same lives, but at the end of the day, live a completely different life.
The best example of that is, I'm sure those of you who have siblings would say this or agree with this, that is, you all grew up in the same household, you grew up with the same parents, but you will all describe your childhood differently. And it's because of the lens you're each living through.
And with that, this was Faith Talk with Val
and Sony.